Welcome to Your Soul Rising. In this video, we talk about the Ptolemaic model of the universe and why it's still relevant to us today. Of course, we know that the Earth is not physically the center of the universe, and that the Ptolemaic model has limited scientific value anymore. But the physical and scientific level of analysis is not the only one, and for the average person, it's not even the most important one. Before we get started, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Even though your subscription is free, it helps this community grow and learn together. Now get cozy, listen to the fireplace sounds in the background, and let's turn our gaze toward the planets and stars. Except, we won't be looking up to the heavens. We'll be looking deep within ourselves. As I'll argue in this video, the Ptolemaic model is still relevant to us today as a map of the mind. In an age ruled by instruments and empirical certainties, the Ptolemaic universe has long been dismissed as quaint, a beautifully wrong idea from a more ignorant time. Yet, if one peers beneath the surface of its concentric spheres, a deeper truth begins to glimmer. It's not a truth of matter and motion, but of meaning and psychology. The Ptolemaic cosmos, though scientifically obsolete, remains spiritually precise. It's not a model of astronomical fact anymore, but it does give us a diagram of our mind and soul's condition, its burdens, and its path forward. Unlike the heliocentric cosmos, which removed man from the center of the universe physically and unwittingly left him spiritually orphaned, the geocentric model embeds human consciousness in a cosmos full of symbolism. In other words, it renders the psyche into planetary spheres and stars. The Ptolemaic system arises not from material science, but from a world in which matter is secondary, and where reality is first and foremost nous, mind, and where the movements of the heavens mirror the dynamics of our psyche. In this vision, Earth rests unmoving at the center, not out of arrogance, but because of necessity. It is the place of density, of incarnation, of spiritual gravity. It is the condition of the self that has fallen into separation, or the ego, entrapped in an illusion of its own making. This is the state that the Hermetic philosophy, for instance, calls the tomb of the soul, where the divine spark forgets its nature and believes itself to be a body. We find similar ideas in Christianity with the concept of original sin, or the fallen state of man. If religious analogies aren't your favorite, David Foster Wallace evokes the same idea in This Is Water, our automatic assumption that I am the center of the universe and that everything else exists to serve or hinder me. Of course, our immediate experience does seem to confirm this view of the ego, and so the Ptolemaic Earth is the visual corollary of that egocentric illusion, a luminous metaphor for the default setting, as David Foster Wallace puts it, of human consciousness. But this central Earth is not the end. It is the beginning. Around it rise the 7 planetary spheres, circles of influence and thresholds of transformation. In the ancient cosmology, each planet was more than just a rock floating in space. It was a god. It was a force, a test. To ascend through them was to enact a spiritual metamorphosis, to transmute the soul from a creature of appetite into a bearer of light. We'll go through them now. In the Ptolemaic model, the moon is the closest sphere to Earth. It holds sway over change, illusion, and memory. She governs the tides of emotion and the shifting forms of the dream. To ascend beyond the moon is to step out of identification with past and future, with the illusion of becoming. It is to become present here and now. Mercury tempts with intellect, cunning, and speed. He is the god of language, cleverness, and masks. The soul must abandon the identification with mind, with the need to know, to control, and to solve. Next is Venus, who governs desire, beauty, and attachment to form. She ensnares the soul in the love of appearances, the clinging to pleasure, and the fear of loss. To move beyond Venus is to transmute longing into love that gives without needing. Then there's the Sun, placed near the center of the planetary order, and it is the mirror of divine light, the image of the Logos. To pass through the Sun is to recognize that I am not the source of light, only its reflection. Here one surrenders personal brilliance, ambition, and the need to be seen. Mars, the god of war, demands the renunciation of force, whether physical, emotional, or intellectual. He tempts the soul with conquest and action, the thrill of domination. To pass Mars is to cease striving and surrender the sword. Jupiter is benevolent yet kingly, ruling over law, expansion, and status. He is the subtle temptation of righteousness, of pride dressed up as nobility. To ascend past Jupiter is to relinquish the need for spiritual superiority, for hierarchies, and for being above others in virtue or knowledge. Finally, Saturn, the outermost of the 7 traditional planets, governs limitation, mortality, and time. It is Kronos, the devourer of children, the shackle of all incarnate beings. To pass through Saturn, one must surrender the fear of death itself and the illusion of permanence. It is the gateway through which the ego recognizes that all forms perish and that the eternal cannot be grasped while one is still holding on to the contingent. These 7 initiations mirror the spiritual path found across time and geography. In the Hermetica, the soul sheds each planetary quality, rising upward like fire. In early Christian mysticism, and especially Christian Gnosticism, these spheres are the layers of the aerial toll houses, where the soul is tested by archons of each vice. In Advaita Vedanta, they are akin to the koshas, the layers of illusion veiling the Atman. In all cases, ascent is not movement through space, but the unbinding of identity. Beyond these 7 spheres lies the 8th sphere, the realm of the fixed stars, the zodiac. In ancient thought, this is where the individual soul, having cast off material attachments, gazes outward into the firmament of eternity. Here, the soul experiences a purified individuality, no longer egocentric, yet still distinct. It is the realm of destiny, archetype, and cosmic law. But it is not yet God. The 8th sphere is like Moses glimpsing the promised land from afar. The soul knows its origin, but remains just short of union. It sees, but does not yet merge. This final duality between the one and the many is overcome only in the 9th sphere, the outermost heaven that moves all the rest. Beyond it lies the Empyrean, the realm of God, uncreated and unmoving. Here, according to Dante and the Christian mystics, is pure light, pure presence, pure unity. In the Advaitic tradition, it is Brahman, God without qualities, the non-dual self. When the soul reaches this realm, it no longer sees God as other, but knows itself as God, not the personal self, but the universal I am. Here, the illusion of separation dissolves, and all motion ceases. The fire returns to the flame. The Ptolemaic cosmos thus becomes a map of spiritual evolution. Earth is not a privileged place, but a crucible. The planets, not distant rocks, but inner thresholds. The stars are the symbols of the soul's eternal pattern, and the unmoved mover is the call that draws all things back into unity. This cosmology, unlike the heliocentric, reminds us that the universe has meaning, not out there in space, but within. The heavens are not indifferent. They are mirrors. Consistent with more ancient ways of looking at reality, the mental is more important than the physical, and the physical is an expression, a symbolic image or language spoken about our interiority. And in this vision, the task of life becomes clear. We're not here to dominate or to measure the stars, but to be measured by them, to walk the path that they describe, and surrender layer by layer until only light remains. This is the true Hermetic ascent, as above, so below, as without, so within. The outer cosmos reflects the inner one because both arise from the same divine source. The modern cosmos, infinite and expanding, may be factually correct on a physical level, but it is existentially mute. It flattens all values and orients us toward consumption rather than transformation. In contrast, the Ptolemaic cosmos, though geocentric, is spiritually and psychologically centered. It places the self in the middle, precisely so it can be undone. Its concentric spheres are not prison walls, but initiatory veils designed to be passed by the soul who remembers. And so, to those who seek not only knowledge, but wisdom, the old cosmos still speaks. Its voice is the voice of the inner world, the world we have forgotten in our rush to master the outer. To reclaim the Ptolemaic universe is not to regress in science, but to have a new tool in our psychological toolbox. In its ordered spheres, the soul finds a path back to its source, not by traveling outward, but by descending inward until the idea of center disappears in the embrace of the all. In this sense, the Ptolemaic model is a forgotten therapy. While Copernicus may have displaced Earth from the physical center of the cosmos, it's impossible to dislodge the psyche from its need to center meaning. The geocentric model persists in this regard. At the center is Earth, a metaphor for the ego, the provisional self, fragmented, confused, and yearning. The ego certainly believes itself to be central. It interprets the world through the narrow lens of its own needs and narratives. This is the beginning of consciousness, but not of wisdom. As David Foster Wallace suggests, the default mode of human awareness is egocentric, and the Ptolemaic Earth captures this brilliantly. Then each of these surrounding spheres represents a faculty of the self, a temptation of the psyche, and therefore a gate of growth once overcome. The moon, which governs change, mood, and memory, gives us the opportunity to become aware of our own cycles of emotion, noticing the pull of the past, the repetition of moods, and illusions of self that seem to come and go. It represents the beginning of emotional awareness. Mercury is the restless mind, the analyst, the critic, the trickster. Here lives the monkey mind that jumps between thoughts, the part of us that solves but seldom rests. Mercury teaches the danger of over-identifying with intellect, of mistaking cleverness for clarity. To pass by Mercury is to integrate thinking without becoming its slave. Venus seduces with the image, the projection of beauty, love, and validation. This is the sphere of attachment, of seeking worth in the eyes of another. Think of narcissism hiding here. Psychological growth at the gate of Venus means recognizing the difference between true intimacy and performative allure. One must learn to give love without losing the self. The sun is constructed self-image, the persona that we shine into the world. It represents a need to be seen, to succeed, to become someone. This is where comparisonitis finds a home. In Jungian terms, it is the conscious ego ideal. But to mature psychologically, we must learn to outgrow this image. We must surrender the golden mask, letting our value come not from identity, but from essence. Mars, of course, challenges us with aggression, assertion, and drive. It is the will to act, to defend, and to compete. These can be very positive, yet if unchecked, they breed conflict and burnout. Good mental health here requires the transmutation of anger into boundaries and ambition into purposeful, conscious direction. Mars must be honored, not idolized. Jupiter expands the psyche through belief, morality, and meaning-making. Unfortunately, it can also inflate the ego, producing dogma, spiritual pride, or a false sense of self-righteousness. Here, individuation requires us to discern genuine wisdom from the inherited scripts of culture or religion. We must find our own inner law. We must become creators of our worldview rather than consumers of someone else's. Saturn is the final planet, as mentioned before, and as such, it is the great limiter. Time, mortality, failure, fear of inadequacy, all of these dwell here. Psychologically, Saturn confronts us with our finitude. It humbles, but it also roots. It teaches responsibility and discipline and maturity. To pass through Saturn is to accept that we are not gods, but that paradoxically, we carry a divine spark nonetheless. There is a reason why Saturn is the final one. It is the ultimate acceptance of our earthly mortality state and the overcoming of the fear of death. The seven spheres form the great arc of individuation. They correspond to psychological complexes, developmental tasks, and archetypal forces. They don't disappear, and they're not enemies. Instead, they must be loved and integrated and seen consciously as part of a complete psyche. As in the Hermetic Ascent, the goal is not to escape them, but to pass through them consciously, each time surrendering another illusion of the egoic self. Beyond these, of course, lies the eighth sphere, the realm of the stars, and of cosmic order. Here, the individual sees their life as a pattern within something greater. The leaf remembers that it is part of a tree, and not existing purely for its own leafness. The ego softens into archetype. Meaning begins to crystallize, and one no longer sees life as random, but as symbolically woven and full of meaning. This is the beginning of deep coherence, a crucial ingredient in psychological well-being. The left hemispheric egoic view of compartmentalizing, separating, making atomistic our experienced reality, transfers more to the right hemispheric perception of the whole. Beyond that still is the ninth sphere, the Empyrean, what mystics call the Godhead and psychologists might call the self in its fullness. Here, duality dissolves. The split between inner and outer, self and world, fades. There is a sense of unity, of being held, of belonging to existence itself. Those who glimpse this, even briefly, often describe it as healing, beyond words. The entire psyche is complete. To walk the Ptolemaic cosmos as a map of the soul is to engage in mythopoetic therapy. It is to reclaim a symbolic language for inner life, where each emotion, desire, and difficulty is not a pathology, but a message signaling where integration is necessary. Modern psychology, in its more integrative forms, Jungian, transpersonal, existential, has already begun recovering this language. But the Ptolemaic model gives it structure. It offers a vertical access to counterbalance the horizontal sprawl of modern life. Mental health in this context is not the mere absence of symptoms. It is the alignment of the psyche with the architecture of reality. It is the ability to read one's life as a sacred text, to see the planetary dramas not just in the sky, but in the mind. It's the capacity to say that I am in the center, not because I'm supreme, but because that is how the mind becomes whole. Because this is the crucible of consciousness. So the Ptolemaic universe is not outdated. It just needs to be shifted inward. We just need to regain the value of the symbolic, rather than merely focusing on the literal and the physical. So for those willing to walk its spiraling path, not through telescopes, but through introspection, it still offers a map toward meaning, healing, and wholeness. I hope you found this interesting and enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new here and want more content like this. And thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.